What's going on YouTube? Project Mystic coming at y'all with a tutorial video. You know what I'm saying? Master Mystic in the building. So this is a Sorcerer Magicka PvP tutorial. I'm gonna teach you how to use the Sorc. I'm gonna teach you how to build the Sorc. I'm gonna teach you how to yeah, I didn't think this through. That's pretty much it. Alright, so the first thing you need to do when becoming a sorcerer is decide what kind of race you want to play with, right? You have a couple of different options, okay? So let's start off with the high elf. So basically the high elf is your damage race. So it gives you a decent amount of spell damage, it gives you max magicka, and it also restores magicka and stamina, whichever is lowest, every 6 seconds when you activate an ability. You can also choose a Breton. So that's basically the sustain race. So it does damage, like you just don't get the spell damage, you just get a whole bunch of sustain. So if you need help sustaining your magicka pool, then that's definitely something you want to look into. It also makes you tankier against fighting other magicka classes. You could also pick the dark elf, which in my opinion is very not worth it after the recent changes they did to the dark elf, but that's okay. Also increase your spell damage the same as a high elf. There's no reason to be a dark elf, to be honest, unless you really want that stamina pool. I mean, stamina is really important in PvP, but it's not like, you know what I'm saying, you're not getting any type of sustain or anything back from it. And I mean, if you might as well just be a high elf if you want to go for damage. But I mean, Breton's the master race. Like if you want something that works for everything, get Breton, because you have your damage there, you have your sustain, you get a little bit of tankiness. It's just all around perfect magicka race. Honestly, there's no reason to pick anything else for like, if you just want like that easy go-to magicka race, it's the Breton. Simple as that. Next thing we're going to talk about is your playstyle, right? So the playstyle that you have with every character is extremely important to how you're going to build your character. So there's pros and cons to having a pet build, you know what I'm saying? So the pros to having a pet build is that you have more health because of the passives that you get. I'll explain that later on in the video, but you have, like, I would say another 1,000 health or so because of the pet. And you also get a very strong burst heal, because let me look at this burst hit real quick. You know what I'm saying? The heal is 9,600. It could go higher, I believe, with spell damage. I'm not really sure. It might not. It might. I'm not 100% positive. Pretty sure it does. So another thing is your pet also does a lot of damage. As you can see here, mine does 7,000 damage. In PvP, it's going to be cut in half. There's still a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage in PvP. Like I hit people for 2,000 to 3,000 damage every like 2 seconds or something, and that's a lot of damage that you're getting. That's a big dot if you want to be honest. And then also your pet can tank some hits for you because it, you know, it's in PvP, so you can kind of kite around your pet. People are going to miss their abilities. Sometimes they might use ranged attacks. If you're a ranged person, then you can kind of hide behind your pet so they can kind of tank some of those hits. It just works out like that, you know what I'm saying? So also you can run Necropotence, because Necropotence gives you the set where let me pull it up for y'all, boys. Necropotence gives you, if you're wearing a pet, you also get 3,000 max magicka. So that's like a whole bunch of magicka right there. That's decent because that's for your shield. You know, it helps your shield out. So the cons of using a pet is only a couple. I mean, using a pet build is probably the most preferable thing you could do for a sorcerer, to be honest. It's just that good. Because they nerfed Healing Word, you're going to want to use a pet. Because like, what else are you going to use? Cons of using a pet is that you have to take up 2 ability slots, obviously. This one and that one, 2 ability slots, which means you can't run certain things like, I don't know, some people take off their execute because they don't really need their execute in their build. I'm just using it this time I'm just testing. I usually don't use execute, but you know, you have to take off something off your build, like power surge or something like that. Maybe you're Boundless Storm and run a mighty shooting setup piece. So the problem is that it dictates what build options that you can use on your bar, because you have less options basically, and you can't use certain buffs because of that. So it's just basically limited build options because you're missing 2 slots. That's basically the only problem with using a pet build, and people are going to call you trash for, you know, using a good ass ability that's, you know, not even all that broken. But it's okay, it's okay. It might be overperforming, I'm not even gonna lie. It might be overperforming, but it's not that serious. So next, I'm going to talk about all the skills and what are good skills and what, useful skills to use as the sorcerer. So crystal fragments is your go-to move. You're going to want to use this move pretty much every time you use an ability that procs it. So it's going to glow orange, and then you're going to use the ability. Or I said orange, my dumb ass. It's going to glow purple. You're going to use that ability. All the sorcerer abilities are very useful. Rune Cage is also a good ability. This is if you want to stun somebody, and it's like a delay, so you can set people up with it. The Dark Conversion, this is like your go-to sustain. It takes away your stamina. You get health and Magicka back. It also gives you 20 seconds of recovery, pretty much. Your mines are good for 1v1s. I would use that only for duels, because you can have 5 mines and it does 10,000 damage every time. So that's 5 mines. That's a lot of fucking damage. But it's a circle around you, so it's not as useful. You know what I'm saying? You could also use the you could use this as long, like 2 pets, but that's 4 ability slots. That's very unconventional. I mean, it's annoying as fuck. People are gonna call you trash for using it, and it's also not that fun, if I do say so myself, because it's cheese. And like, what do you want, a heavy attack for your damage? Like, that's boring as fuck. Anyways, Haunting Curse, that's pretty much your setup. You have to run this move. It does a lot of fucking damage. It procs, does 13,000 damage on my screen after 3 seconds, and it procs again for the same amount of damage after 8 seconds. Pretty much, this is what you're going to use to time all of your attacks around. Like, this is where all of your times come from, because the sorcerer is around timing. You kill niggas with timing. That's how it works. All right, when this pops after 3.5 seconds, you want all your shit to pop at the same time. You want your clench to pop, you want your crystal frag to pop, you want your haunting curse to pop. If it has execute, you want that to pop as well. You just want shit to pop. That's what this is. It pops shit off. And then we already talked about this pet. The pet is very useful, you know what I'm saying? It heals you for 10,000 health if you have a lot of spell damage and shit. It does a lot of damage. This is pretty much what everybody's using. The shield, it's a must-have. You have to have a shield. How do you have a Sorc without shield? How do you survive? Your shields scales off of max Magicka and health. So the more max Magicka you have, the higher your shield is going to be. But that's up to 50% of your max health. So for example, if I have like 50k max Magicka, it's going to make my shield worth like, I don't know, 10,000 or something, for example. But if my health is only 15,000, half of that is only going to be 7.5. So you have to kind of balance out your max Magicka and max health. It's kind of hard to explain. Basically, the more max Magicka you have, the bigger your shield, but it caps at half of your health. So yeah, that's if you want to do the math on that. This is really good too, but this is mainly for stam classes, but you could use it if you want to. You know, tanks use this for the block chance. You get max Magicka. If you want to use it, you can. Gives you also minor resistance buff. This is very useful as well, because it is the execute. It procs after 4 seconds. So if you burn somebody down and if they get 20% health, then it explodes, dealing 13,000 damage. It's a very good setup. People stopped using it though, because it doesn't really kill people a lot when you use it, because people have impen, so it's not gonna crit and kill the nigga. So I mean, yeah. Boundless Storm is very useful. This is like a must-have. You're gonna have at least this buff on. You don't necessarily have to have this move on your bar, but you have to at least have the buff, the major resolve and major word for 5,000 resistances. It's a must. You have to, or else you're going to die in PvP. Also gives you movement speed for 30%. That's really useful. It does some damage, not too much. Liquid Lightning, that's a PvE move. Power Surge, that's extremely good for people. It gives you spell damage for 20% for 33 seconds, which is a long time. It also heals you for a lot of fucking damage every second if you crit, which is a lot of healing. So half of that would be 1300 health every second if you crit every second. It has to, you get the point. Streak is pretty much how you escape everything. Like, that move is just so useful. You just use that move to get out of situations. It's a teleport. It's just so fucking amazing. I love it. Super fun. Ultimates, this is a very useful suppression field. It costs like 200 ultimate. It's very expensive. I mean, it does some damage over time. Like, it does a lot of damage, I guess, and then it stuns the person. I mean, yeah, it stuns the person and they get silenced, but like, it's and then you have the Atronach, which is pretty fucking OP, and it arrives, it does a lot of damage, and it does a lot of damage over time. And then if you do the AoE morph, it'll do AoE damage. It does a lot of damage. It does a lot of fucking damage. And then you have energy overload. Some people use this. It's useful in certain situations. Against a stamina character, not so much. They're going to roll out of your shit. But against a magic person, I can see how this would be very useful. There's a lot of damage. It basically makes your heavy attacks and your light attacks go crazy. So let's talk about the passive abilities for each skill line. So for dark magic, it reduces the magic and stamina cost of your abilities by 5%, which is really good for, you know, abilities. And then when you're hit by an enemy with a dark magic ability, you heal for 10% of your max health. This is crystal, this is crystal. Why do I keep saying crystal? God damn. Crystal fragments. It heals you for 10% of your max health, which is roughly 2k health. When you block an attack, you get some stamina and magicka back. You also get minor prophecy. Whenever you cast a crystal frag or dark conversion, either one. Wait, hold up. Dark conversion? Oh, hidden enemy. Okay, my bad. I was just about to come to it. A complete fucking... Dark summoning, you get 1400 magicka when one of your pets is killed. So basically it helps you whenever somebody decides to focus your pet, you just resummon it for, you know, pretty much free. Reduces the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%, which is really good for sorcerers. This is why sorcerers are really good, like stam sorks, because you get reduction in cost of your abilities. Increase your max health by 8% while you have a summoning pet active, which is the one I was talking about earlier. This is about like 1000 to 2000 health, something like that. Storm calling, your passives are 10% recovery, which is very good. 5% increased damage to your shock and physical damage. So the more health they have, the more damage you do, basically. And this increases your weapon and spell damage for each sorcerer ability slotted. And destruction passives, you're gonna want your trifocus. You're gonna use the flame staff. Flame staff increases your heavy attack damage by an additional 12% damage. You're going to want 10% enemy spell resistance reducted. You're going to want increase the chance to apply your status effects. You're going to want the flame staff again for your damage to single target abilities, which is everything that we have on our bar. And you're going to want also when you kill an enemy with a destruction staff ability, which is the flame clench, you get 3600 max magicka. Destruction staff, and you're going to want restoration staff on your back bar, because when you heavy attack you get 30% extra resources back for heavy attacking, and you also get healing for doing a heavy attack. Light armor, you're going to want the harness, because the morph for harness gives you a 40% damage shield, and also if you're fighting a magic person you get like infinite sustain pretty much. This also reduces the effectiveness of snares applied to you, increases the reduction for sprint. You also get recovery, you also get reduction in cost, which is really good paired with your Breton. You get spell resistance, which is also good paired with your Breton. You also get spell crit, which is good compared with your Brit. No, I'm just playing. Let's go for everything. You get spell pen, which is also really great. That's why light armor is really good, because you get spell penetration. Meteor is also a very good move to have for the major skill line. That's a really good ultimate that you want to farm for. You have to get a lot of lore books to get that move. Inner light is also cool for, you know, detecting stealth enemies, and it gives you, you know, crit chance that you can use in your front bar. Also, your max magicka is increased by 7% if you include the passives in this tree. Yeah. Increase your recovery by 2%. And your max magicka by 2% as well. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is decide what kind of build you want to run. If you want to be glass cannon, if you want to be tanky, if you kind of want to be sustainy, then you know what I'm saying, you can decide what you want to do. Based off of that dictates what armor you're going to wear. So let's say, for example, you wanted to wear some sets with some sustain on it because you're not good at managing your magicka, for example. You can run something like Bright Throat's Boast. You could run Armor of the Seducer. You could run fucking Shackle Breaker, that's decent for sustain as well. That's good for stamina. Shroud of the Lich, that's pretty much the sustain set for Magicka classes. If you want to use something like that, that's also cool. You could also run Magicka Furnace. If you want to run some damage sets, a couple of good things for that would be Julianos. I mean, that's mostly PvE set, but you could also use it for PvP as well. It does a lot of damage. Bright Throat's Boast, that's a damage set and a sustain set. It's both. Necropotence is a very good damage set. It's usually for pets, or it's only for pets because, you know, it only works if you have a pet, obviously. Shockbreaker does decent amount of damage. Spell Strategist does a lot of damage, but that's, you know, if you're focusing on one person, or if you want to switch to, I don't know, you have to be more advanced to use Spell Strategist, but it's very, very, very good set, high damaging. Spinners, that's the go-to for spin penetration, a lot of damage going there. There's a couple of other sets, but that's just a few of them that I mentioned right there. You could run some tanky sets. If you want to run some tanky sets, you could run Armor Master. Everybody wants to use that. I don't know if you wanted to try Wizard's Riposte. That gives you some 15% damage reduction. That's pretty much the same resistances as Armor Master. If you do the math on it, 15% is about the same, but it's kind of iffy because it's only based off of direct critical damage. So just a couple of options, a few monsters helms that'll help you and your choices. You could run Bloodspawn. Bloodspawn is extremely helpful for stamina sustain. Also your ultimate sustain, so you can get your ultimate quicker. And then also it gives you a lot of resistances. Engine Guardian is a very good option if you want some sustain. It can give you health. It can give you Magicka for your sustain. It can give you stamina so you can roll out or use Dark Conversion more often. So it's very useful skill for sorcerers. You can run Infernal Guardian. Infernal Guardian is extremely useful if you're wearing a shield. That's what I'm doing. I'm running a shield because you know, sorcerers run shields, and then and it's pretty much very useful for because, you know, you're always popping shields, you're spamming shields, so you have to 50% up chance on that pretty much every time it procs. And so the person can I don't want to say 50% up chance because it's 6-second cooldown, but it procs pretty much every 6 seconds. And when you're spamming your shields, it also allows you to put pressure on your enemy, so they can't just like blindlessly attack you while you're shielding yourself trying to get away. You can also pressure them, and it forces them to get back a little bit. Or you could just press shield and then apply pressure to somebody and stun them, and then they could just increase your damage, because a lot of the time it just increases my damage. You could run Infernal Guardian. Every time you light attack, it gives you another pet, and you know, because more pets on the sorcerer is already broken, so why not? You could also run Shadowrun. That's a very good monster set because, you know, defense is key. Magic recovery is also key. 15% is a lot of defense. It only occurs onto one person, so it's a very high uptime. Zons, it applies on light attacks. You have to be really close to the enemy. Pretty much does like infinite damage melee, so if that's something you're into, you know, look into that. Pirate Skeleton makes you extremely tanky, and it pretty much has like a, I don't want to say 100% uptime, but I guess 100% if you technically want to look at the numbers. And it gives you 3,000 resistances, and it also gives you 30% damage reduction, which is a lot, but at the cost of losing some major some healing, so minor defile, and your health recovery by 50%. But you know, it's very useful if you want to be really tanky. Mighty Chuden is extremely useful if you want to Mighty Chuden is extremely useful if you want to run a pet build, because then you can take off the Boundless Storm move. Jewelry traits, you could run Arcane, or you could also run Infuse to increase your spell damage enchantments, and that increases your damage by a lot, and it also increases your healing, so whatever works for you. If I'm being completely honest, if I had jewelry crafting, I would probably go for infused rings. That way I could get a lot of extra damage in, because, you know, damage is more important than max Magicka at this point. Let's talk about Mundus stones. You have to decide what Mundus stone you want. So the Astronaut gives you 238 Magicka recovery, plus the bonuses you get from all of your percentage recoveries to boost that number. So I guess 300, 400, whatever number it is. I'm not really sure. So that will be boosted and you get a lot of magic recovery from that. You can also choose, you would use that if you need help with sustain, obviously. Spell damage, if you need more damage, like if you have enough sustain, go for the apprentice. That way you can get more damage if you're hoping for damage or heals. Max Magicka, only use that if you are in need of Magicka. Like let's say your magic is not 40,000, I would get the mage Mundus stone, because you need at least 40,000 Magicka if you're going to run a shield. Let's go over my champion points. Why not? Champion points, I put in, I'm only CP like 700 something, by the way. I could get to 810 if I decided to. I just don't feel like it. I have plenty of crowns. I put a lot of points into Ironclad for direct damage, because most people are going to hit you with direct damage. Like that's everything, basic attacks, like everything that hits you instantly is a direct damage move. Crit resists, that increases your tankiness from crits, so you're going to want a lot of points into that as well. You're going to want points into thick skin, damage over time. You're going to want points into magical damage, points into physical damage. You're going to want points into I'm at risk. Quick recovery for your healing. Bastion, well, I took mine. I'm gonna take these out because I already have like 48,000 max magic. I don't need anything in Bastion. I'd say if you don't have 40,000 magicka, then put some in Bastion. Break free, sprint, magicka recovery. Only put 64 in that because any more it's ridiculous. What is it, 15 points to the next one? That's, you don't need that many. You don't need anything in stamina recovery because you don't have enough stamina recovery for percentage to affect it, so that's a waste of points. Magicka and stamina for heavy attacks restore, that's a must. I'd probably put a little bit more in that, but you know. Roll dodge, you're going to want 7 points in that as well. Blessed Elfborn for crits, you're going to want more damage into your elemental. You want a lot of spell pen. You want some direct damage attacks. All of your attacks are direct, by the way, all of them. You're going to want some points into your heavy attacks and light attacks. You're going to want that's pretty much it. So what you're going to want to use is Haunting Curse, and then you're going to light attack to pop the spell damage enchantment. Well, I mean, you're going to light attack between everything that you do. So every time you pop a move, you're going to want to light attack in between. I'm just saying light attack between this specific one because it's the most important one. It props your spell damage enchantment. Anyway, on to the next one. This is what we're going to do the rotation for. Make sure your Haunting Curse is on the person. You're going to pop your execute like so, and then you're going to knock the bitch over with your hula hoop, and then you're going to use your crystal fragment because it's procced at that point. So let me just proc crystal frags real quick. Alright, it's procced. So what you're going to do is Haunting Curse, light attack, endless fury, hula hoop, crystal frag. But it's going to be faster than that, obviously, but you're going to want to light attack in between everything. So Haunting Curse, light attack, endless fury, light attack, this, and then crystal fragment when it procs. Obviously, if it doesn't proc, you're just going to keep spamming this move until it procs like that, and then boom. So basically, boom, 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 and then crystal fragment is going to proc at the same time. But I mean, sometimes you don't really have enough time to use a heavy attack, I mean a light attack in between each one, because the enemy is going to pop the Haunting Curse before that. Haunting Curse, pop, endless fury, and then you're going to want to cancel it and then go like that, basically. Hold on, let me show you. Alright, so you're going to want to block cancel your hula hoop just so it hits the enemy fast enough. You're going to block cancel everything actually. Alright, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to do it really high speed. Boom, 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 and then crystal fragment. But if you do it faster than that, obviously it's going to proc at the same time. Hold on. Alright. Oh god, I'm not... And then you're gonna do that, and it all pops at the same time. Makes sense? Okay, that makes sense. Cool, 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 cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So looks like that's pretty much it for this tutorial video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see more, then you know, subscribe. And that's pretty much it for this video. So yeah, enjoy y'all weekend.